these high transcendental states of loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and impartiality or equanimity. So we'll just talk a bit about that, because tomorrow also there will be teachings on this. The problem with doing very strong shamatha is that one can then sit in great peace and calm and the hell with the rest of the world. And so in order for this not to happen, the Buddha very much emphasized that we had to work very much also on opening the heart. We do share this planet with many, many billions of sentient beings. In fact, if we include the insect realm, zillions of sentient beings. And how to live in this world peacefully and harmlessly. All beings, in the depths of their heart, want to be happy. Very few beings would choose to be miserable if they had a choice. We would like to be happy. Many people do not understand where true happiness lies. What is genuine happiness? They mistake it for pleasure. But nonetheless, in our heart of hearts, we would like to feel good rather than feel wrong. And so, the Brahma Viharas start very simply with that. The first of the Brahma Viharas is called, in Sanskrit, it's called Maitri. In Tibetan, of course, Champa. In Pali, Metta. And Maitri is associated with the word for a friend. So it's a feeling of friendliness. And it's sometimes translated as love. I mean, it doesn't mean love, but it means genuine love. I mean, the problem in the English language, as we know, is that although on one hand it's extraordinarily rich and diverse, on the other hand it's incredibly impoverished in some areas, including the spiritual vocabulary, and the word love. I mean, I love the Buddha, I love ice cream, I love going for walks, I love my wife or my mother, my children. Now, in a sensible language, like Tibetan or Sanskrit, there are different words for all these different emotions. They don't use the same word. Right? There's a different word for I love ice cream to I love my mother, or I love all sentient beings. They have different words for love. But in English, unfortunately, this most important word, one of the most important words in our language, one of the most important emotions we can have, has been totally adulterated and cheapened. And so, therefore, usually the word Maitri is not translated as love, which often is then understood as attachment, but by the word loving kindness. Because loving kindness gives much more the idea. You don't have loving kindness towards ice cream. and so that clarifies the kind of love we're talking about here. It's a warmth of feeling, a warmth of caring, which is defined as may beings be happy. It's this wishing for their happiness, their well-being. Now, the Buddha was very pragmatic, and he recognized that we cannot really give genuine love out to others if we don't have it inside to ourselves. And therefore, we start by wishing ourselves to be well and happy. This is very important. Many people, especially Westerners, why is this? Can happily sit radiating love out to everybody else. They have a very hard time giving love to themselves. This is not a lack of humility. It is essential for our well-being that we are friends with ourselves, because we have to take ourselves to enlightenment. We are stuck with ourselves. Yes, as we go on, hopefully, that heavy sense of ego will begin to dissolve. But until we are on the 8th spiritual level, which is very high, there will still be some sense of ego. And so therefore, it is very important that we make that sense of self which we have into a helper on the path instead of an obstacle. And through our practice of loving kindness, we can begin to accept ourselves. We are trying to accept others with their good points and their difficult points. We have to give that same acceptance to ourselves. Okay, we make mistakes. Okay, we're not the perfect 8th level bodhisattvas we read about in the texts. So what? If we were so perfect, we wouldn't need the Dharma. We need the Dharma because we have problems. Those very problems are the path. So instead of rejecting ourselves, criticizing ourselves, always putting ourselves down, and thinking that that makes us spiritual, we should recognize that's another kind of pride, right? Thinking we're worse than others. And it undercuts the whole time our ability to really progress as a whole, balanced, psychological being on the path. You see, now look. This overfed dog here also wants to be loved. Also wants to be loved, it wants to be happy, it wants to be comfortable, it wants to be cared for. Now, if she can love and care for this dog, we hope she is also loving and caring for herself. Isn't it? Shantideva, the great 8th century Buddhist scholar, said that we should not mistake pride and arrogance, which is a negative emotion, and self-confidence, which is essential on the path. We have to believe in ourselves. When I first met the Karmapa, the 16th Karmapa, I saw him the first time in Calcutta back in the 60s. And I was sitting there, just sitting there, I had only seen him about 5 minutes. And he said, your problem is you do not believe in yourself. If you do not believe in yourself, who will believe in you? And it's true, most people don't believe in themselves. If we don't believe in ourselves, how can we encourage ourselves? How can we accomplish anything worthwhile if we're always undercutting ourselves by not believing we are capable? And this belief in ourselves, this belief in our potential, to transform. It's part of this whole quality of maitri or loving kindness, where we give to ourselves that tomorrow I'm sure he will describe it, but one way that it's been described is, and in case you're not going tomorrow, I tell you now because this is important. So one way of doing it is by imagining, the Tibetan way of doing it, is by imagining in the heart a little white pearl of light. Just about a quarter of an inch, just a little pearl of light in the center of the heart, well, center of the chest, not on the left, center of the chest here. And one thinks, what would I need to be happy? What is it I'm lacking, really? I mean, not another iPad or an update on your telephone, I don't mean that. Essentially, what is blocking my happiness? My sense of inner well-being. And then imagine that this light comes from this little pearl. The light spreads out, which is giving us that. It is restoring the inner balance within us and giving us, it is this light which will give us what we want of this happiness. And this light spreads out and it goes to every cell in our body. All of it are just permeated with this sense of genuine love and acceptance and forgiveness. And just this warmth throughout our body of just accepting, yes, we are as we are, and everything's all right. And so then one visualizes that, and the whole body being filled with this light of love and acceptance and forgiveness, until one feels that kind of a warm glow in one's heart. Then one spreads it out. One can spread it out. First one imagines somebody in front of one that one naturally loves or admires, and one wants them to be happy. And so then one visualizes the light going out and completely permeating them. And then from that to someone whom one is feeling fairly indifferent towards, you don't care whether they're happy or sad, you know, who are they anyway, the postman, you know, anybody that you see that you don't ever think about. Suddenly imagine how wonderful if that person were happy, if all their problems were solved, if they were feeling really filled with joy. And then visualize somebody who you have problems with, who is difficult, traditionally called the enemy. But it just means anybody that you have difficulty really loving. Imagine that person happy, filled with this light, filled with this sense of well-being. And then from that spread the light out further and further throughout the whole planet and throughout the whole universe. Just imagine how wonderful it would be if all beings, not just human beings, animals, birds, creatures in the oceans, the seas, the rivers, insects, all of these beings want to be happy. Nobody wants to be hurt. The smallest little insect, they have their own sense of self-preservation. They don't want to be hurt. He doesn't want to be hurt, do you? Of course you don't. He does not want to be hurt any more than we would want to be hurt. It's exactly the same. He wants to be happy. He wants people to love him, take care of her, madam. And when people are loving to her, she is very happy and she is loving back. Isn't it? We are very much more connected than we ever can realize. How connected we all are at a much deeper level than our superficial differences. So it's very important, this meditation, you know, it's not something just in the head. We have to feel it in the heart. this warmth and this acceptance of ourselves and this wishing for our own well-being, and then spreading that out more and more and more to others. And if it works, what happens is that we not only feel more at home within ourselves, but because of that, we also are much more kind and forgiving of others. We are harsh towards others because we are harsh towards ourselves. When we have love in our heart, then it will just overflow. It's like a jar which is full of water, then after a while the water flows everywhere. But if the jar is empty, where's the water supposed to come from? So those who live in communities have I have 3 of our nuns here, this is why I'm looking at this. Is a very good opportunity for practicing these things, you know, feeling good within oneself and giving out that kindness to everybody around you. The second of the Brahma Viharas is the Karuna. What a beautiful word, Karuna, which means compassion. And it means, may all beings be free from suffering. And again, Karuna is, especially in Mahayana Buddhism, it's the second wing of the bird. A bird has 2 wings. One wing is profound insight or wisdom. The other is open-hearted empathy and compassion. And if you only have one, like a bird, you won't fly. No. Apart from lying around, madam, I think you need some exercise. The problem with dogs is they usually don't go for walks unless somebody takes them. Like humans, they're very lazy. So compassion in Mahayana Buddhism is extremely important because it underpins our motivation. Why are we interested in a spiritual path in the first place? Is it just because we hope it will make me feel better? So it was understood that if we do our spiritual practice purely with the aspiration that it will make me feel better, that alone is a very low kind of motivation. I mean, after all, in that case, maybe just, meditating alone is quite difficult. So therefore, if you're just trying to meditate in order to feel better, then maybe there are easier things to do. Watch a good video or something. The motivation should be because we recognize that just as I am suffering and have not realized the fullness of my inner joy and my inner potential as a wisdom being, likewise, everybody has so many problems, so much suffering. So very, very few people come and say, everything is so perfect in my life, and it's because of my own inner sense of understanding and stability, so I know whatever happens to me, this will never change. So the more clarity we bring to our lives, the more we recognize the problem. Compassion isn't just dealing with, sick puppies. It's dealing with this whole existential problem of being on this planet lacking wisdom. We just don't see. We have such incredible potential, which is called our Buddha nature. This is not some fantasy. This is our true nature, who we really, really are in the depths of our being. In the depths of our being, we're perfectly okay. But we don't see it. We can't access it. It seems very, very far, even though it's so close. It's like they say, it's like your eyes can't see themselves because they're too close. So we don't recognize our true nature because it's so close to us, we don't see it. We're always looking outside or getting caught up in our thoughts. Inherently, we are completely pure. Inherently, we are completely wise. Inherently, we are complete love. So where have we gone wrong? And when one begins to see that inside oneself and outside with other people, just looking in people's eyes, the sadness. We all want to be happy. We spend so much time trying to make ourselves happy. We work so hard at it. So how is it we end up so miserable? How is it that we cause so much suffering to ourselves and to others? We don't intend to. And when we see that, the extent of the problem, then compassion arises. And the aspiration, I have to gain the understanding, the wisdom, the breadth of mind that can encompass all this and really help beings to be liberated. It's like a doctor, a doctor sees all the sick beings and he wants to help, but first we have to train how to be a doctor. It's not enough just to want to help. If we don't know what we're doing, we give people the wrong pills and we make them worse. We need training. But our training is based not on I want to become a doctor so that I can heal myself if I get sick. Or even I want to become a doctor because then I can specialize and get lots of money and everybody will admire me because I'm such an important person. That kind of motivation is extremely, it's not even a motivation. A genuine motivation should be seeing the sickness of other beings and wishing to attain the qualities needed and the expertise needed to help them to overcome their sufferings. But our physical sufferings are nothing compared with our mental sufferings, our existential sufferings, our psychological sufferings, the mind sufferings. How to help people to overcome this inner suffering. Because if we can overcome our inner suffering, then the external suffering we can deal with. And that should be the motivation for our practice. That we need to learn something about ourselves in order that we can use it for helping others to understand about themselves. So compassion is a very vast mind. It's not just, doing good to help people and, all the good things that people do in this world to benefit others, even for their own discomfiture. It is absolutely wonderful and it's part of compassion. But genuine compassion is this, embraces all beings. Because we see so clearly how we have such a vast potential as humans. And what are we doing with it? What are we doing with it? This incredible mind, this incredible intelligence, what are we doing with it? That's so sad. I mean, you know, it's wonderful. I think it's absolutely wonderful that all the bodhisattvas and everybody are shown smiling. Because it would make even the Buddha weep. But he doesn't weep, he smiles. Because he knows that ultimately, even though we are caught in this web of our own total delusion, it's all just a dream. And eventually we're going to have to wake up. Right now we're all sleepwalking. But our potential is awake. And eventually, however long it takes, we will wake up. We have to wake up, otherwise we have no planet to live on. So compassion is every day, seeing someone suffering, trying to help them, seeing animals suffering, trying to help them, and then beyond that, all our motivation for our life here is based on creating greater and greater empathy and understanding and wisdom in order to be of service, in order to liberate, however long that may take. So compassion is a very, very important quality of the heart. It's the opposite of indifference. It's this empathy because of the interconnection that we have with all beings. Not just human beings, but all beings who share this planet together. I don't have that much time, so we carry on. The next one is empathetic joy, or mudita. That's another lovely word, mudita. And it means, you know, here we are thinking about all the suffering in the world. So then the next one is all the joy in the world, all the good things. You know, we shouldn't always zero in, like the media, on all the bad things and the things which are going wrong. All sorts of wonderful things are happening in the world. Every day, people are doing beautiful things to each other, really helping each other, being kind, being thoughtful, going out of their way. Wonderful, wonderful things that people are doing every day. And so to think of that and rejoice, thinking of the goodness in the world, the goodness of other beings, and feeling glad. And that includes, again, oneself. Compassion includes oneself. One can look at all one's problems, or one's mental afflictions, or the difficulties in one's life, and empathize with oneself. Of course, it's difficult. But then we can also think of all the goodness in ourselves. Again, this is not being selfish and proud. The Buddha himself said it's very important to remind ourselves of our own inner goodness, along with all our problems and our faults and our mistakes. Yes, we have those, naturally, we're humans, but we also have